Boker Tov, good morning, Shabbat Shalom. I just want to jump right into this morning because this is my heart, and I wanted to share my heart this morning with you. I have a few notes, quite interestingly. I quickly jotted them down on a first-class piece of mail on an envelope, so you have to just bear with me. You know, lately I've been listening to a lot of Joel Case. You can find his music. I've got some of his playlist out there on our website, thewelltroddenroad.org. But a lot of his music talks about Father's goodness and Father's what He's done to deliver us. He has delivered me from all of my fears. And you know, you really don't know what you are fearing until it is put right in front of your face. And this is kind of just a heartfelt podcast. It's sharing a little bit of my testimony in the deliverance of some things. And you know, I won't go into any details because really the details aren't really very applicable in this situation. So I just want to talk and just share with you where I'm at as Father leads. And I asked His Spirit to lead me in this podcast because I'm believing that by the words of my mouth that there are things that will be said that some of you will be able to take and to use for your own lives to be able to set yourselves free. Of course, you know, he who the Son sets free is free indeed. But the Son uses His people. And that's what I kind of want to talk about is, you know, his family a little bit. You know, Messiah needed His disciples. The work that Messiah has left us to do, and this just as I was pondering this morning, what came to me was in Acts, the book of Acts, when Messiah was getting ready to be raised up in front of them. In other words, go back into heaven. The disciples were so concerned about, you know, is it now that you're going to restore the kingdom to Israel? And what was He really saying? What were they really saying? Hey, you know, it's all about us. It's all about restoring the kingdom because we are Israel. But what did Messiah say? He said, no, he said, he basically told them that it's not for them to know. Basically, you need to get out and take my word to the nations. And the mission was too big for Messiah even on earth. That's why He had to go back into heaven to send His Father's Spirit back to us so that His work can be done in advancing the kingdom of Elohim throughout all the earth. So what is that really saying? It's saying that we need other people. We need other people in our lives to go forth to be able to go forth and work with to advance the kingdom of Elohim. We are a family of Elohim. We are a community full of people that love each other, that should bear up one another's burdens. The Word is full of social interaction. Our Elohim, Yahuwah Elohim, is a social Elohim. He designed us to be that way. The enemy has always convinced me all my life that I was a loner, that I could do things myself. And lately I've found out that, you know, that's not really true. And for those that have felt that and do at this present time feel like that you're a loner, and that you can do things yourself and that you don't really need the help of other people, Don't fool yourself, because it's not true. It's a lie of the enemy to get you over off into a corner to devour you. Um, this is a ploy that he is out to do. This is a tactic that he uses. And I was speaking to my mom the other day, or yesterday, and I was actually bringing up some of these things, talking about the importance of going through trials and tribulations in your life. And even that's what I was reading James or Jacob this morning, and he's talking about, I think in James 1, about count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the proving of your belief works endurance. That's Jacob 2 and 3. And if endurance has its perfect work, in other words, if we let endurance continue to perfect that which he began in us, then we will also be perfected and complete and lack in nothing. And that's really what he wants for us, because that's the preparation that is necessary for the redemption of our bodies. We have to be perfected, meaning that the Spirit is alive and well and has authority to where the flesh is dead. It has no say. And when the flesh is dead, then the new man can be put on. In other words, the new man of the redemptive body when he returns in the resurrection. But I want to get back to this endurance. I've always talked about that, in Costa Rica, when I was fretting and worrying, and Father revealed to me, saying, hey, where you're at right now is a pasture. I'm here, you're grazing, and when I call you next to another pasture, then you're going to hear me, and you're going to hear the whisper, it's time to go, in the wind. I may be at the northwest end of the pasture, but I'm still going to hear the shepherd. And he's calling me to another pasture. But it's the pastures that we're at the moment are not the center focus point of our walk. And it shouldn't be. It's the journey in between the pastures. If there's grass that's greener on the other side, so to speak, in a good way, meaning that Father wants to lead us to another pasture, because what we have consumed in our present pasture, it no longer is going to benefit us. So he's moving us to another pasture. We're going to go through valleys. We're going to go through rocky terrain. We're going to go through the trenches. But his Spirit is still there with us. But something that came to me, the nearness of Father's Spirit is overwhelming. But also the nearness of Lucifer, the nearness of Satan is also overwhelming, because it's during those times that we are being led through the valleys by the Spirit. We know he is there with us, but who is also present with us and pressing in? It's Satan, and that's what happened to Messiah in the wilderness. The wilderness experience for Messiah was a transition point into his ministry, into the launching. He was emptying himself of the flesh, and the Spirit came and accompanied him in the wilderness. But who was very close to him as well, and appeared, was also Satan. So with the nearness of the Spirit of Yahuwah, people long for that. People long to be close to the Spirit. Guess what? It's also during those times that Satan is the most near, because he is there in the trenches also with us, because it's during those times that if we let go of the Spirit, there is a hand that is outstretched waiting for us, and that's the hand of Lucifer. here, take my hand. I will help you through this. And this is the battle that we're looking at. And this is why I couldn't ever understand. We're in a time where the remnant his Father's working on the remnant. Father's working on his children to set them free. And I've noticed this in my own life, but many other people's lives. He's setting people free. And it's supposed to be this joyful time of being set free. And in my own life, in being set free, it's also been one of the most difficult points in my life, because this is also the time of the wearing down, as it says in Daniel. He wears down the set apart ones. Satan comes and it's the anti-Messiah spirit, the beast spirit, to wear down, to wear out the set apart ones, because as the Spirit's leading us through these trenches and these valleys and rocky terrain and rough times, going to another pasture, he is always there. Satan is always there, trying to cause us to let go of the leading of the Spirit, to fall back into listening to our flesh. And guess who's right there to catch us? It's going to be Satan. So it's the wearing down. And I never really noticed this, but in all of my wearing down by Lucifer, by Satan, and what he has done to cause me to be worn down, I'm still moving forward. And so that was just a huge revelation to me. And sometimes it's important to go back in my own self. I was making this illustration to my mom, when we get discouraged, sometimes go back and, from like myself, to go back and look at some writings that I've done, go back and listen to podcasts, go back and watch videos that I've done. Because when no one's there to encourage, when there's no one doesn't seem to be there, we have to be able to stir up ourselves, that gift. And sometimes we just have to go and put on a podcast that we've done in the past, or go back to our diary or our journal where we've actually had prayers that were answered, and go back. It's kind of a funny illustration, but when my dog Freedom, when Rivka and our dog Freedom, there's no one around, we're not petting him, we're not scratching him, and he's bored, not that he does this, but he'll go around and entertain himself. It's kind of like a dog chasing his own tail. And that's what we have to do. We have to chase our own tail to encourage ourselves and to lift ourselves up, build ourselves up. But what's also is really good is to have friends to be able to contact and to share in those times. I'm realizing more and more how important friendships are, and because it's the core of a social community. It's the core of the family. A body cannot move forward. A physical human body cannot operate without everything, cannot operate in its full capacity, I should say, without everything working together and going in one direction. And what I plan on doing, and you can go back to the videos, but there's a video that I did on in Israel at Gideon Springs, and I want to go back because at the very end of it, I actually did a reenactment of when Yahuwah was choosing who he wanted to, in Judges 7, who he wanted to use to go into battle. And it was a very small amount of men. They cupped their hands, and that's what Yahuwah said. He says those that cup their hands and they drink with their at the same time as they are watching the enemy. In other words, they are quenching their thirst but at the same time, they're not taking their eye off the enemy. And that is something very powerful. And I want to go back and I want to look at that because in keeping our eye on the enemy, we understand what he's up to. We know we don't we don't allow him to distract us. Is what I'm trying to get at. He doesn't want, and I wrote a little note. It says the enemy wants us to take our eyes off of his business. In other words, he doesn't want us to know what he's up to, so he will cause distractions in our lives. And he wants us to get our eyes on the distractions versus on really what he is up to. And the distractions are basically, fantasy land. They're illusions. This is where things like, jealousy and envy come in because they're illusions. They're things that they're not real. The enemy is very, very real, but he causes us to put our eyes on things and he makes them seem so real that they're believable, but they're not real. And I don't know if I'm making myself clear here, but if we keep our eyes on quenching our thirst by going to the living water and drinking from his well, the well of Messiah, the well of the Spirit, and drinking from that living water and letting it refresh us, we can at the same time keep our eye on the enemy, just like the men did there at Gideon Springs. The men, the 300 men, yes, were, for some reason I had forgotten the number, which is terrible. So I had to go and flip over to Judges 7 and check real quick. Those 300 men, they were plugged into Father. They were plugged into their general, to the Master, in drinking and quenching their thirst, but also at the same time keeping their eye on the enemy and not allowing any distractions to interfere with what Yahuwah wanted to do in using them to bring down the enemy. So I hope all of that kind of made sense, but it's what I was trying to do was encourage you to go back and to look at things that you've done in the past that will help see how Father used you in the past. And if you're not currently recording, writing your notes in your journal or making audio recordings or whatever it is that you use to record the goodness of Yahuwah in your life, go back and look at that because it's a testimony. And that's how we overcome. We remember the goodness of Yahuwah in our lives and how we have overcome in the past. And sometimes that's just enough for us to get us through these hard times that we're going through. And, think about Eliyahu, think about Elijah, how alone he felt. And, Father's not concerned about that. He's like, listen, I've got 7,000 who haven't bowed their knee. I've got a work for you to do. And so that's what we need to remember. And lastly, I kind of want to look at, I was reading James or Jacob, chapter 4. Chapter 4, verses 1 through 7. Where do fightings and strivings come from among you? Do they not come from your pleasures that battle in your members? You desire and do not have. You murder and are jealous and are unable to obtain. You strive and fight and you do not possess because you do not ask. You ask and you do not receive because you ask evilly in order to spend it on your pleasures. Adulterers and adulteresses, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with Elohim? Whoever therefore intends to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of Elohim. Or do you think that the Scripture speaks to no purpose? Does the Spirit which dwells in us intensely crave unto envy? But he gives greater favor. The Spirit does. Because this he says, Elohim resists the proud, but gives favor to the humble. So then, subject yourselves to Elohim, resist the devil, and he shall flee from you. So I began looking at that. And, in verse 6 it says, Elohim resists the proud, but gives favor to the humble. Yahuwah always gives to those who already possess. In other words, Yahuwah, he resists the proud because the proud resists him. Yahuwah gives favor to the humble because the humble gives favor. And so what that really is saying is, as I've always, in the word always says, that he just gives back to what we've already given out to other people, which in turn really is giving out to him. Because how we treat other people is how we treat Father. There's no disconnect with that. Now I want to just touch on what does it mean to resist the devil. And as I was pondering that, I really believe that this, came from Father. To resist means to withhold something the other party desires. And so if you look at that, to resist is to withhold something that the other party desires. So to resist the devil is to withhold what he desires. And what does the devil desire? He desires our flesh in operation. Because if our flesh is in operation and fully alive, it means that we are opening the doors for him to come right in and do his dirty work in our lives. So if we resist the devil, what that will do is we will withhold that desire. We will withhold what he desires. In other words, we will put to death our flesh. That is how we resist the enemy, resist the devil, is we do not give the devil any place. We do not give him any excuse. We do not give him any open doors through our own flesh. Now, when people do open the doors and do not resist the devil, then he's not going to flee. He's going to come in. Because if, there's only two masters, as I've got done telling, my son the other day, which is a whole other testimony I'll have to share later. I was sharing with his friend, you can only serve two masters. There's only two kingdoms. If you're resisting the devil, then you are giving Elohim, Yahuwah, the Father, what he desires. If you are resisting Elohim, whether it's through your flesh, through your pride, then you're giving the devil what he desires. There's only two. There's the if-then. If you resist Elohim, Yahuwah, you withhold what he desires. And what does Father desires? He desires open access to our spirit. He desires a yielded spirit unto him. And he also desires putting to death the flesh, which means it closes the doors, the portals to the enemy, and opens the doors to actively communicating with him through our spirit, which is in our reproductive area. So, what does it mean to resist the enemy? It means to withhold from him what he really wants. Messiah Yahushua resisted the devil, and it said the devil fled from him for a while when he was in the wilderness. And how did he do that? Messiah put to death his flesh through his fasting, and he spoke the word. He closed the door, and he gave no access to the enemy. He gave no keys to the enemy. He did not give his password out. He did not give his username out. Yahushua signed a privacy statement with his father, and no one else was going to come in. No enemy, including Satan himself, was going to come in and find that information out. And Yahuwah is all about secrets. He's all about, the secret of Elohim, which is basically Messiah in us, the hope of glory, the hope of esteem. That's what Shaul said. And this is and the secret that comes to an end in Revelation 10. So Yahuwah is all about keeping private from the enemy, because the enemy is always out. He's listening. He's I forget the word that people that are searching for information uses. I forget the word. There's a certain word, reconnaissance maybe. That's the word. He's spying. He's always listening. When we resist him, we shut down the enemy's satellites. We shut down his listening devices, his bugs, everything that he has in place. By the putting down of our flesh, because it's our flesh that actually powers the enemy's listening devices. Did you get that? Because that just blew me away. It's our flesh that provides and is the source of power. Our flesh in operation is the source of power for the enemy and for the enemy's listening devices, for his satellite. So you pull the plug on your flesh, you're pulling the plug on what the enemy can do in your life. But don't stop there. There's this thing called backlash, because if he cannot touch you, he will go after those that you love, your sons, your daughters, relationships, people that are important in your life. He could not get to Job. He could not kill Eob, but Father allowed him to take out. There was severe backlash that happened because of Eob's innocence. What happened because of Daniel and his innocence? He got thrown in the lion's den. There are certain backlashes. It doesn't mean that the enemy's winning. It just means that he's trying another tactic. But for your own life, for your own salvation, it's absolutely imperative that we resist the enemy. Resist the devil and he will flee from you. Pull the plug on your flesh and he will flee from you, because he has no open doors into your life to operate. This is what I believe. This is what I'm learning. And it is very powerful. And so, I've got 17 minutes left. And this was basically a short podcast, barely 30 minutes. It's all I have right now. And I encourage you to share these. Share the podcast that my precious bride Rivka has done at the ocean. Listen to them, because we need encouragement. And I'm sure you know people that need encouragement. So pass these podcasts around. Pass Edita's podcast around that she's doing on the book of Revelation. Go out to Michael Lake, kingdomintelligentbriefing.com. Listen to his podcast. Surround yourself with people who will do nothing but edify you, to build you up, to point you back to the Master. Because those are the kind of believers, those are the kind of friends that we need in our lives to boost us, to lift us, because you can't do it alone. I can't do it alone. Father doesn't need a whole lot, but obviously he needed more than one. So he chose 300 to carry out the orders of Gideon and the orders of Yahuwah himself to go forth and destroy the enemy. So I just want to leave you with a blessing. May Yahuwah bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you. May Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon you and give you shalom. Joy in the Master. Go forth. The kingdom is coming. Let's advance it right now. Blessings.